What's up everyone, Lang Whitaker here from Grind City Media. It's time for another Cooking with Lang, and today we're gonna keep it simple, but it's gonna be amazing. We're gonna do grilled cheese sandwiches. We're gonna make some homemade tomato soup. It's super easy, it's quick, it's fresh, it's delicious. This is Cooking with Lang. I'm here, you're here, let's go. So when I was growing up, I became a grilled cheese expert. My mom had a job. I would come home from school every day, have the house to myself, and I made a grilled cheese. I still make grilled cheese all the time. Now I get to make it for my son. It's really simple. You just need some bread, some cheese, some butter. I put a little bit of Dijon mustard to give it a little bit of zip. And nothing's better with a grilled cheese sandwich than some soup to dip it in. Let's make a fresh tomato soup. You don't need much to do it. We have a little trick with some rice that's gonna thicken our soup. We don't have to use cream or anything else. All this stuff is gonna make us an amazing meal. You could have it for dinner, you could have it for lunch. It's easy to do. Let's start with the soup because it's gonna take a little bit for the soup to cook. It gives us time to get ahead on the soup, and then we can go to the grilled cheese once the soup's bubbling away. To start with, we're gonna do some onions and some garlic, and we don't have to be too exact with this stuff because this soup's gonna get blended up later and it's gonna mix it all together. Like we don't have to be perfect with our cuts on this. So I'm just gonna cut the edges off the onion. We'll peel it. And then each one of these halves, I'm just gonna give it a quick chop into a bowl. These guys. All right, we're done with the onions and the garlic. Now I'm just cutting these little cherry tomatoes in half. And for this soup, use whatever tomatoes you have around the house, use whatever you got left over. As I said earlier, it's all gonna get blended anyway, so it doesn't really matter what you got. You just want the flavor of the tomatoes. And then I've got these two big tomatoes kind of left over too. I'm gonna cut off the end and then just give these a quick, not even a dice, just quarter them and get these ready to go. Let's make our soup. I've got a pan on high heat. Olive oil's in. We're gonna start with our aromatics, the onion, the garlic. It's gonna go in, and I don't really want to get color on it. I just want it to cook down a little bit. So I'd say a couple minutes. I'm gonna put in some salt. About a teaspoon of salt. I'll put in some pepper. And we're gonna let those cook about 4 or 5 minutes. Okay, the onions and the garlic have cooked for about 5 minutes. A little bit of color on there, but mostly they just kind of wilted down, which is all we wanted. So now we're gonna add in these tomatoes. And like I said, it doesn't really matter how you go in. They're big pieces. They're gonna cook in here with this onion. I'm gonna give it a little bit of a stir. And then I'm just gonna cover this with water. And sometimes you see people make soup, they use chicken broth, beef broth, other things. I don't want it to taste like chicken or beef. I want it to taste like tomato. So I'm gonna use water. And I'm just gonna put in enough water to cover these tomatoes and let it come to a boil. And once it gets to a boil, we're gonna add in our secret ingredient. All right, our soup has come to a boil. You can see the tomatoes starting to kind of give up their juice, starting to wrinkle a little bit. Two things I'm gonna add. Big sprig of thyme. We're just gonna leave it on the stem. We'll take that out later. That's gonna give us a lot of beautiful flavor. And then this is rice. This is about 2 tablespoons of rice. And we're gonna put this in and it's gonna thicken up our soup. The rice is gonna cook, give off some starch, soak up some of that water. And now, you've heard the phrase, we're gonna put things on the back burner. We're literally gonna put this on the back burner. So I'm gonna put this on low, let this simmer. And I'm gonna move this back here. We're gonna let this cook, I'd say about 10-15 minutes, and then our soup's ready to go. In the meantime, let's make a grilled cheese sandwich. Grilled cheese is pretty self-explanatory. We're gonna grill some cheese and some bread and some other stuff. The one thing I like to do is get bread that's nice and thick, that has a little bit of heft to it. We're gonna make basically a skillet full of fat, butter, olive oil to cook this in, and we want it to soak up a little bit of that fat and that flavor. I also like to put just a little thin layer of Dijon mustard on the bread. Gives it a little bit of acid, a little bit of heat, and a little bit of flavor that it wouldn't have otherwise, and breaks up sort of that cheese and fat flavor. Then this is just some cheddar cheese. I'm gonna put one slice on each, fold it together. We're ready to go. We got a skillet here. I'm gonna put in a tablespoon of unsalted butter. Unsalted because we want to control if it needs salt. This doesn't need salt. So, and I'm also gonna put in some olive oil here, extra virgin olive oil, to help keep the smoke temperature down. Like, we don't want this to brown and go crazy, so we're gonna let this butter melt. And then as it melts, we're gonna add in the sandwich. Temperature's not on high. I don't want it high because it'll burn it. We're trying to melt the cheese and crisp the bread. So if temperature's on high, it's not gonna happen in time. So this is on medium. You can see it's starting to melt. I'm gonna go ahead and put in my sandwich here, right in that nice pool of butter and olive oil. And then lid's going on. I'm gonna let it cook for 60 seconds, 2 minutes, and I'll give it a check. Been in there for a few minutes. I've got the lid on here, not really to do anything other than to keep it warm and melt the cheese. We gotta get the cheese melted. So been in there about 3 minutes. I'm gonna turn this over. Beautiful. I'm gonna add a little bit more butter, like about half a tablespoon, to go in there and melt it a little more. And I'd say about 2 more minutes, our grilled cheese is gonna be done. All right, our soup is off the heat. The rice is all cooked. Everything's cooked and nice. You can see that lovely color. I'm gonna take out this thyme. It's already given us all that flavor. You can see the leaves that are gonna come off are off. And now to make this a creamy soup without actually using cream, we're gonna use this hand immersion blender. And I'm just gonna give it a couple buzzes. Okay. One thing we haven't done with this soup is test it for seasoning. So I'm gonna take a little taste. It tastes like pure tomatoes. It's beautiful. I'm gonna give it a little, maybe half a teaspoon of salt. And then to make this smoother and creamier, you could eat it like this. It's gonna be delicious. Just to make it a little nicer, I'm gonna pour it through a strainer here into this bowl and strain out the tomato skins, whatever didn't make it through the motorboat engine that we just put in there. All right, I've got all the soup strained out of this. We don't want those parts anymore. They can hang out here. And now I'm gonna pour myself a bowl of this beautiful soup. Look at that. And to make it look picture perfect, a couple sprigs of thyme, just right on top. Let's eat. I got this grilled cheese. I have this beautiful tomato soup, and this is why you do it, for the dip. No. Buttery, cheesy. You get a little bit of that Dijon mustard. The flavor of the tomatoes is so good, fresh. This is great. Start to finish, literally took 15 minutes. Not out of a can, not from a delivery. You can make this yourself, it's super easy. I just made it You should make it. This is Cooking with Lang.